Did you know that everything you feel today has its origin in your childhood, even in the most painful moments? This may be hard to understand, but the experiences we have when we are young have a profound impact on how we feel, how we act, and even the decisions we make as adults. Childhood is like fertile ground where our emotions and behaviors begin to form. Every situation we live through, every smile, and every tear leaves a mark. These marks often stay with us throughout life, and many times we forget about them. However, they continue to shape how we relate to the world, to others, and even to ourselves. Today, we will explore how these childhood experiences continue to influence our lives, especially the more painful parts of our past. And who will help us understand this is Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists who ever lived, who dedicated his life to studying the unconscious and how it affects us. He believed that our unconscious carries these unresolved memories and that they manifest in various ways in our lives. Soon, we will discover how these experiences can generate powerful signals that remind us of these unhealed wounds. Carl Jung introduces us to the concept of the shadow, a part of ourselves that we often prefer to ignore or hide. The shadow is not a mystical or supernatural concept, but something much more real and profound. It represents the emotions, fears, and traits we deny or reject in our personality. Often, the shadow is formed by the parts of ourselves we cannot accept, whether due to shame, fear, or the social pressure to be perfect. It particularly forms from childhood experiences when we are taught to hide aspects of our personality that are considered inappropriate or undesirable. Throughout life, our shadow can manifest in different ways. It could be an impulsive behavior, an exaggerated reaction to something minor, or even a constant feeling of inadequacy. Sometimes, the shadow appears as a quiet insecurity that prevents us from reaching our true potential, such as the fear of being rejected or the fear of not being good enough. At other times, the shadow may express itself more aggressively, like uncontrollable anger or an emotional reaction that seems disproportionate to the situation. These manifestations are signs that something inside us has yet to be integrated or understood. Reflecting on the shadow helps us better understand our own limitations and behaviors. It makes us ask, why did I react this way? Why do I feel so insecure in certain situations? These questions don't have easy answers, but they are an invitation to dive into the depths of our unconscious and begin to understand what is hidden there. The shadow is not something to be feared or avoided, but something to be understood and integrated. By recognizing it, we begin to demystify the power it has over our lives and gain more control over our reactions and decisions. The shadow is not only related to the negative aspects of our personality, but also to the talents and abilities we were taught to hide. Often, shame or social rejection leads us to repress parts of our true essence. Perhaps you have creative talents you've never dared to explore, or a deep desire to express your authenticity, but something inside you holds you back. By confronting our shadow, we can uncover these hidden potentials and begin to live in a fuller, more authentic way. Therefore, looking at our shadow is an invitation to self-knowledge and transformation. It is an invitation to embrace the parts of ourselves that we are afraid to show the world. By integrating the shadow, we not only better understand what motivates us, but we also overcome many of the emotional and behavioral blocks that prevent us from living authentically and fulfilled. True healing and growth begin when we allow ourselves to look inward, recognize our shadow, and choose to transform it into light. Have you ever felt tired, overwhelmed, or simply low on energy, even though you don't quite understand why? Sometimes, this feeling of exhaustion has no clear explanation, but it could be a sign that we are carrying an invisible weight. This weight is not physical, but emotional, and it originates from past experiences, often forgotten or ignored, that continue to affect our behavior in the present. It's like carrying an invisible backpack full of unresolved memories, and the most surprising thing is that we don't always realize it. This invisible weight can come from big or small traumas, harsh words we've heard, moments of rejection, or neglect that we didn't process when we were younger. It could be a simple phrase spoken by an adult that left a deep mark, or a lack of affection and attention at crucial moments in our development. The impact of small experiences, which might seem insignificant at first, can be enormous because when they aren't properly understood and healed, they continue to influence our adult lives in subtle and often destructive ways. The feeling of being overwhelmed, not knowing why, is one of the most common ways to sense that our unconscious is carrying these unresolved memories. Often, we try to fill this emptiness and exhaustion with distractions or a frenetic pace of life, without taking the necessary time to look inward and understand what is truly happening. And, while we ignore this weight, it continues to shape our choices and affect our well-being. Have you ever stopped to think that many of your worries and frustrations might be connected to something from your past that was never fully healed? The invisible weight can also manifest in our difficulties with relationships. We might carry a fear of rejection, a constant insecurity, or self-sabotaging behavior that originates from childhood experiences. These difficulties often become repetitive patterns in our lives, such as attracting problematic relationships or being unable to maintain emotional balance. The past reflects in the present, and the emotional scars we don't treat continue to influence our decisions and attitudes, becoming a cycle that's hard to break. The good news is that once we start to recognize this invisible weight, we can begin working to lighten it. Looking at these unresolved memories and giving them the attention they deserve is a vital step toward healing. It may be painful, but it is necessary. By facing these past traumas and emotions, we can free ourselves from the burden we carry, beginning to live in a lighter and more authentic way. True transformation happens when we allow ourselves to review the past, understand its lessons, and use them to free ourselves from the limitations it still imposes on our lives. Have you ever felt that inexplicable emptiness in your chest, as if something important is missing, but you can't quite identify what it is? This emptiness can arise during calm moments in life, without an obvious reason, and often leaves us confused and disconnected. Emotional emptiness, according to Jung, is one of the ways the unconscious signals to us that there is something unresolved within us, something that needs to be seen and understood. Instead of being just a fleeting feeling, this emptiness is a symptom of something deeper that needs to be addressed. Often, this emptiness is related to childhood, to how we learned to deal with our emotions when we were young. If at some point in our emotional development we had to disconnect from our emotions in order to survive in an unstable environment, this emptiness can reflect that disconnection. Perhaps, in trying to cope with a difficult situation, such as neglect or rejection, we closed off our emotions and moved forward, but those unprocessed emotions remained within us, generating this emptiness. This is a clear sign that we are detached from our true essence. Emotional emptiness can also arise when we feel that we are not living according to who we truly are or with our deepest desires. When we spend years seeking external acceptance, validation from others, and neglect what truly makes us happy, the emptiness begins to manifest. This emptiness is often a sign that we are living superficially, disconnected from what really matters to us. Ask yourself, am I living according to my deepest values? Or am I just seeking external validation? It's crucial not to ignore this emptiness, as it is an opportunity for introspection and self-knowledge. By allowing ourselves to feel this emptiness, we can begin to understand its origins. It invites us to look inward, reflect on what we are doing with our lives, and what we need to heal within ourselves. Sometimes, emotional emptiness is the first step toward true healing, as it forces us to look within and seek what we are missing, rather than trying to fill this void with external things or momentary distractions. However, the emptiness doesn't have to be seen as something purely negative. On the contrary, it can be a powerful tool for transformation. When we accept this emptiness and understand it, we begin to move toward integrating our deeper emotions and needs. Instead of fearing it, we can use it as a guide to find what truly matters and connects us with our true essence. In this way, by embracing the emotional void, we can begin to heal it and eventually transform it into something that propels us toward a more authentic and fulfilling life. The relationships we cultivate throughout life are often a mirror of ourselves. They reflect what is inside of us, both what is conscious and what is hidden in our unconscious. According to Carl Jung, the way we relate to others is often a reflection of the emotional wounds we carry from past experiences, especially from childhood. The people we attract into our lives can, in many cases, represent projections of the parts of ourselves that we do not accept or are unable to integrate. Toxic relationships are a clear example of this. If, at some point in our life, we were neglected, rejected, or didn't receive the love we needed, we may end up attracting people who replicate these same behavioral patterns. Often, we attract someone who makes us relive old pain and wounds, as if we are unconsciously seeking an opportunity to heal or correct what happened to us in the past. However, this cycle of repeating the same painful situations only reinforces our emotional disconnection and keeps us trapped in the past, preventing us from truly moving forward. Repetitive relationship patterns are common and can manifest in various ways. For example, you may notice that throughout your life, you always attract the same types of people who, in some way, make you feel rejected or undervalued. Or perhaps you find yourself involved with emotionally unavailable partners, unconsciously repeating patterns of abandonment or neglect experienced in childhood. These relationships are not mere coincidences, but a way for the unconscious to try to resolve unresolved issues. However, as long as we are unaware of this, we continue repeating the same dynamics without truly changing course. Jung teaches us that, in order to break these patterns, we need to look within and understand what these relationships are trying to teach us about ourselves. Relationships serve as an invitation for self-knowledge, to understand our emotional needs and the patterns we repeat. When we are able to identify the wounds from the past that are being projected into present relationships, we have the opportunity to change the way we connect with others. Instead of seeking approval or love from those who cannot offer it, we can learn to cultivate self-love and seek relationships that nourish us in a healthy way. The key to changing these patterns lies in self-awareness and inner healing. This requires the courage to face what is hidden in our unconscious and recognize the wounds that still affect us. Only when we are able to heal these wounds from the past and integrate the parts of our shadow can we free ourselves from dysfunctional relationships and create more authentic and healthy connections. Looking at the relationships we attract is a powerful way to understand who we really are and how we can live more fully and authentically. When we free ourselves from limiting patterns, we make space for deeper, truer, and healing relationships. The healing journey is undoubtedly one of the most transformative paths we can walk. When we begin to understand that the difficulties and wounds of the past do not have to define who we are today, we open the doors to a new reality. Healing, according to Carl Jung, does not mean erasing or denying the past, but integrating the parts of ourselves that were neglected or rejected. By doing so, we can release the emotional weight we carry and transform painful experiences into sources of strength and wisdom. Jung believed that true healing comes from accepting our totality, including the parts of ourselves we would rather hide or forget. Instead of seeing the wounds of the past as obstacles, we can view them as opportunities for growth. By integrating these experiences, we begin to heal the fragmented parts of our psyche, creating a more complete and authentic version of ourselves. Rather than carrying the weight of what was unresolved, we can use it to propel us toward a fuller future, aligned with our inner truth. Self-love is a fundamental element in this healing process. When we learn to accept ourselves with all our imperfections and forgive our failures, we begin to release the power to transform our lives. Healing doesn't happen only on an intellectual level, but on an emotional and energetic level as well. By healing our emotional wounds, we are creating the conditions for a more authentic life, where we become freer to live according to our true values and desires. This process of self-discovery and self-acceptance is the key to turning what was painful into something that drives us forward. Another important concept of Jung's is synchronicity, which is the idea that when we begin to live according to our inner truth, the universe starts to conspire in our favor. When we make the decision to heal our past and integrate our experiences, we align our lives with a more positive and transformative energy. Synchronicity shows us that internal changes attract external changes, and the healing process is not something isolated but a deep experience that reverberates in the world around us. In summary, healing is an ongoing process, but it is incredibly rewarding. By looking at the past with compassion and understanding, we can transform our pain into fuel for the future. This doesn't mean forgetting or ignoring what happened, but accepting that we are more than our wounds and that we have the capacity to create a healthier and happier future. If you are ready to begin this journey of healing and transformation, remember, True freedom comes from integrating and accepting all parts of who we are. When we do this, the path ahead opens up, full of possibilities, self-knowledge, and personal fulfillment.